Hello and welcome to Jessie Bear Book Club. Today we are talking about Adrian Mole and the Weapons of Mass Destruction. This book is set just about a year after Adrian Mole, The Lost Diaries, and it has a very different tone to the other books. I have to admit I struggled to get through this book. It's quite depressing. Adrian Mole just takes this downward spiral into debt, and I wonder if anyone can let me know. I know Sue Townsend went blind, and was she struggling with her sight when she wrote this book? Because it's a very different tone to the rest of them. I actually put it down for, I think, 3 weeks. I was like, only had about a quarter of it left to finish, and I put it down for ages just because it wasn't funny. It didn't captivate me. There were funny moments, I will give it that, but overall it is nowhere near as funny as the others. I was a bit let down, to be honest, because I'd read snippets of it before and thought, oh, it's going to be hilarious. Also, this book is a massive step backwards for Adrian Mole as a character. All the development that's gone on in The Lost Diaries of Adrian Mole and the Cappuccino Years is just swept aside. Both his sons are no longer with him. William has gone off to Nigeria to be with his mother, Jojo, and Glenn has gone off to the war in Iraq. And I don't know, I always really liked Glenn and William and their dynamic alongside Adrian, and how much Adrian obviously loved his sons in the Cappuccino Years. You know, he rescues them from the fire. His whole life revolves around them. Even in The Lost Diaries, he doesn't want to go to work so he can spend time with them. And even though he's a bit weird in this book, you empathize with him, whereas in The Weapons of Mass Destruction, it's like he's regressed to being in his 20s. And talking about regressing into his 20s, Adrian Mole does the thing that most people do in their 20s in this book. He racks up an insane amount of debt, like £200,000 worth of debt, not including his mortgage and his loft apartment he got in Rat Wharf. What a name. I know, who would want to live there? And the best thing is, then there's rats. So in this book, Adrian has just moved into his new loft apartment he's bought in Rat Wharf. He is working in a bookshop, part-time, well, not part-time, full-time, but he's always skipping days, so we won't even get into that. And he's just started a relationship with a young woman called Marigold Flowers, who is a bit nerdy. And anyway, it progresses. Marigold is a bit of a character. Her family are quite hippy-dippy, and her dad Michael Flowers is horrible. He's some weird hippie UKIP member Brexit-wanting guy that just doesn't make any sense as a character. Also, Nigel is back in this book, and this is one of the reasons I think Sue Townsend was struggling with her sight when she wrote this, because Nigel goes blind in this book. And it's just horrible to read about, because Nigel was such a fun character. He's been in it right since the beginning, like Pandora. And, seeing him get angry and snappy, and it hurt my feelings having to read about it. And, he's so rude to Adrian, who's trying to help, and Adrian's a bit useless. But, I don't know, it's very emotional. Also, Glenn goes off to war in this book, and Adrian has to deal with the guilt he feels for letting Glenn join up to the army, and Adrian is so pro-war up until near the end of this book. And I remember the war in Iraq, and I was just like, oh, this is horrible to read. And anyway, he's in this relationship with Marigold Flowers, and he's not really into her. She's there, he gets naked, he'll have sex with her, but he's not overly into it. And Marigold's, well, she starts off quite nice, and you think, okay, maybe, and then she becomes a lunatic. Like a proper lunatic. And she has this phantom pregnancy. It's not even a phantom pregnancy. She just outright lies to Adrian about the fact she's pregnant to try and trick him into marrying her. And then fakes having a miscarriage, and he knows about it. And it's very anticlimactic, because the reader figures out that Marigold is not pregnant. But Adrian doesn't know. And then he gets this text message after they break up saying Marigold lost the baby, and that's it. It was so anticlimactic. That's when I put the book down. I was like, I am not reading any more of this. Where is this going? They were building it up, and then Marigold ends up with Brainbox Henderson, he's made a reappearance. He's in the first couple of books as well. He's the nerdy kid in Neil Armstrong Comprehensive School. And there's a bit of Pandora in this book. Not a lot, because Adrian has fallen madly in love with Marigold's sister, Daisy. And Daisy is just a curvy, black-haired version of Pandora. Completely to the smoking, to the Gucci bags. Like, she is just Pandora who does PR. And he loves her, and it's just repetitive. Like, we've done this before. The best bit of this book, I think, is when they do the school reunion. And Pandora turns up, and Barry Kent turns up, and it's kind of almost like it was in the earlier books, and it's a bit sad, but it's funny. I don't know, this book was a bit down. I mean, the debt was one thing. Glenn going off to war was another. Adrian's father has a stroke. This book Adrian has taken so many backward steps compared to where he was. Even in the Lost Diaries, he forgets William's birthday. And I don't know, that really hurt my feelings because he is such a loving parent in the Lost Diaries and in the Cappuccino Years. And in this one, apart from feeling a bit bad about Glenn, he's almost detached. He doesn't put up a fuss when William wants to change his name to Wole. Wole Mole. I know Sue Townsend really has a way with words. And I don't know, I think he's just gone backwards. It's like a regression session. But there are funny bits. So we'll get on to some of the funny bits. He has bought this apartment, this loft apartment in Rat Wharf, and it is beside a lovely, lovely canal, and on that canal there live a family of swans. And Adrian hates the swans because the swans try to attack all his visitors, and they also poo everywhere. And when people come to visit, they end up trekking it into his apartment, which really annoys him. He also gets a talking fridge at one point. But Adrian starts writing letters to the council about the swans to get the swans removed. And the letters are very, very funny, and I am going to read you a couple of them, because the council think that it's not a swan, but a Mr. Swan. So they write these letters about Mr. Swan defecating in the car park. It's very funny, so I'm going to read you one. So this is one of Adrian Mole's letters he has received from the council about Mr. Swan. Dear Mr. Mole, I found the tone of your letter most offensive. Mr. Swan is obviously in need of help and not condemnation. You say he is mute. Is he in touch with the speech therapy department at the Leicester Royal Hospital? Is he aware social services can help him with his incontinence? Perhaps Mr. Swan's Perhaps Mr. Swan's problems are caused by antisocial behaviour. I still feel reconciliation and negotiation are the path we should take towards a satisfactory outcome. Calling Mr. Swan a creature, a wild animal, and threatening violence can only be counterproductive. Yours sincerely, Trixie Meadows, Neighbourhood Conflict Coordinator. And these letters go on quite a bit throughout this, and I just found them very funny. But they probably are the funniest part of the book. The rest of it's very down, like the fake pregnancy, the war, and I'm going to get onto this bit because this bit really hurt my feelings. Right at the end of the book, throughout Glenn's stint in Iraq, he is friends with a boy called Robbie. And Robbie doesn't really have any family, but he's a bit more like Adrian than Glenn is. He loves to read. Adrian sends them books, sweets, boots to wear. He makes some flashcards in Arabic. He really tries, and the boy Robbie, he writes back. And then in the last couple of pages, as you know, Adrian is getting evicted from his house and he's lost all his money, he's in this incredible amount of debt. He gets informed that Robbie has died. He has been blown up. And nothing really happens. And you skip forward a year to 2004 and it just kind of glosses over the fact, and I don't know, it made me really sad. I thought it was a really horrible note to end the book on. Like, okay, Adrian's now with Daisy, but I know because I've started reading The Prostate Years that doesn't go very well, and he's a little sad about Robbie, but it's just such a downer. Like, I feel so bad. Like, it was almost like a cop-out. You know, like, this shocking thing happens because the wedding between Marigold and Brainbox Henderson It's not shocking, it's extremely dull, and I was really looking forward to reading about it, but nothing really happened. And then the baby saga, where you think Margot's pregnant, but she's not, that went nowhere. So I felt like it was a bit of a cop-out, like nothing in this book, apart from Adrian running up an enormous amount of debt, really happens. And it was a bit of a cop-out. There's a funny bit where he goes to the Citizens Advice Bureau and the woman asks him what he's been doing with his life, and he describes, you know, he was an awful chef, he was married to a Nigerian princess, his house burnt down, he goes through it all, and the woman thinks he's delusional, and that was very funny, and that's near the end of the book. And I like Mr. Carlton Hayes, the bookshop owner who Adrian works for, and his partner, who called Leslie, and Adrian can't figure out if he's a man or a woman and is too afraid to ask. Like, that was quite funny. But that's really about it. It's just there, and it's such a different tone to the other books. I've started reading Adrian Mole, Prostate Years, as you can see. I'm a little bit way through it. And this one's funnier already, and I'm only like a couple of pages in. This one, it's just sad. Like, everything is about it. It's so sad, and all this debt, and the stupid furniture he buys, and I don't know. It's just there. It's not as bad as The Lost Diaries, but it's not as funny as The Lost Diaries. Like, The Lost Diaries are a bit all over the place, but Weapons of Mass Destruction is just sad. But that's the end of this little review. I am reading the final book in the Adrian Mole series at present. Adrian Mole, Prostate Years, number 8 in the collection, and that will be coming out in probably about a month. If you like this video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys next time. Bye!